The castle bells rang 3 times, not to celebrate victory, to announce an execution before sunrise. If the prisoners hidden beneath Blackstone Castle were not rescued before dawn, every captured alpha warrior would be publicly executed, and the war that had consumed 2 kingdoms for decades would become impossible to stop. But the greatest danger was waiting somewhere no one had expected. Before you discover why the Alpha King abandoned his rescue mission the moment he met the woman Destiny had chosen for him, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you are listening from. Now, return to the night when history itself changed forever. Hidden beneath a hooded cloak, Alpha King Ryker Ashenfang slipped silently through the enemy fortress. Every hallway echoed with armored patrols. Every doorway carried the scent of danger. His objective was simple: find the prisoners. Escape before dawn. Nothing else mattered. Until he entered the forgotten royal library. Thousands of ancient books stretched toward the vaulted ceiling. Moonlight spilled through towering stained glass windows. Standing alone beside a weathered wooden table was a young woman arranging fragile manuscripts with extraordinary care. She slowly lifted her eyes. The instant their gazes met, the world stopped. A violent surge of heat exploded through Ryker's body. Electricity raced beneath his skin. Deep inside his soul, the ancient alpha wolf awakened with a powerful, primal purr. Mate. His heart thundered. His breathing faltered. Across the room, the young woman's silver-blue eyes widened as the same invisible bond wrapped around her heart. She knew. He knew. Destiny had finally spoken. Ryker took one careful step toward her. Come with me. She looked toward the sleeping city beyond the library windows, then gently shook her head. I cannot. If I leave tonight, thousands of innocent people inside this castle will die tomorrow. The Alpha King stood frozen. For the first time in his life, the greatest battle before him was not against an enemy. It was against the woman his soul could never stop choosing. Ryker did not understand her answer, not because he doubted her courage, because every instinct inside his alpha soul demanded the same response. Protect your mate. Leave before dawn. Survive. Yet the woman standing before him had chosen something entirely different. She had chosen strangers over herself. The first rays of morning crept across the stained glass windows of the royal library. The castle slowly awakened. Servants hurried through the corridors carrying baskets of bread. Blacksmiths reignited the palace forges. Children of noble families chased one another across the inner courtyard below. For a brief moment, nothing about Blackstone Castle resembled the enemy fortress Ryker had imagined throughout 25 years of war. It looked like home. Not his home. Someone else's. Elara quietly returned another ancient manuscript to its shelf. You should leave. Her voice remained calm. The Eastern Guard changes in less than 5 minutes. Ryker did not move. You knew I was not one of your soldiers. She smiled faintly. You carry the scent of cedar, mountain rain, and northern pine. Her silver-blue eyes met his again. No one raised inside these walls smells like that. The mate bond pulsed gently between them, not demanding, simply reminding them that destiny had already made its choice. You called these people innocent. Ryker finally said. They are. They belong to the kingdom that invaded mine. Elara slowly walked toward one of the towering windows overlooking the city. When I was 5 years old, I believed the same thing. Her earliest memory was not of parents, nor of a home. It was fire. Smoke swallowed the sky, the deafening roar of collapsing buildings. A frightened little girl hiding beneath a broken wagon while soldiers clashed around her. She remembered crying until her voice disappeared. She remembered waiting for someone to return. No one ever did. By sunset, the battlefield had become silent. A patrol from Blackstone Kingdom found her wandering alone beside the ruins. No family, no name anyone could verify, no village left standing. Captain Aldrin, an aging palace officer whose own daughter had died years earlier, refused to abandon the child. Instead of delivering her to an orphan camp, he carried her home. I found you between two kingdoms, he often told her. So perhaps one day, you will belong to both. Elara grew up inside the castle walls, not as royalty, not as nobility. Simply as the quiet girl who preferred books to banquets. While other children practiced swordsmanship, she memorized forgotten histories. While generals planned campaigns, she restored damaged scrolls. Old librarians noticed her remarkable memory. By 16, she could locate almost any document hidden among the hundreds of thousands of volumes preserved beneath Blackstone Castle. People began calling her the keeper of forgotten truths. Yet there was one room she had never been allowed to enter. A circular chamber beneath the oldest section of the library. Its iron doors remained permanently sealed. No maps recorded its existence. No catalog mentioned the books hidden inside. Whenever she asked about it, the elderly chief archivist became strangely nervous. Some histories, he whispered, were buried because powerful people feared they might survive. He never explained further. 3 months later, the old man disappeared. Official records claimed he had died peacefully. No body was ever found. Ryker listened without interrupting. The more she spoke, the less she resembled the enemy his people had spent generations fearing. You still owe loyalty to this kingdom, he observed. Elara looked toward the courtyard below. I owe loyalty to people. Not crowns, not borders. People. She pointed through the window. An elderly baker handed warm bread to 2 orphaned children. Nearby, young palace guards laughed while helping a blind gardener carry heavy baskets across the courtyard. Do they deserve to die because kings cannot stop fighting? Ryker remained silent. He had seen villages burned. Children orphaned, families buried beneath banners bearing both kingdoms' symbols. For years, he had believed victory alone could end such suffering. Now, he was no longer certain. Late that afternoon, Elara led Ryker through the quieter sections of the library. Tower after tower of shelves surrounded them. Dust floated through warm shafts of sunlight. She stopped before an enormous wall map displaying the history of the continent. Something immediately caught Ryker's attention. The oldest borders looked nothing like the modern kingdoms. There was once only one realm, he murmured. Elara nodded. Long before either kingdom existed. She carefully brushed away centuries of dust from a faded inscription. The words had nearly vanished. The Kingdom of Asterra. A united kingdom, she whispered. Before history was rewritten. Ryker frowned. Rewritten? Instead of answering, Elara removed a weathered journal from a nearby shelf. Its leather cover had cracked with age. Most pages had already faded beyond recognition. Only one passage remained readable. When truth is locked beneath stone, war becomes the prison of every generation. Ryker slowly read the sentence again. Something deep inside him stirred. His grandfather had once spoken nearly identical words before dying. At the time, Ryker had believed they were nothing more than an old man's final ramblings. Now, he wondered if they had been a warning. As evening settled across the castle, distant horns echoed beyond the outer walls. Scouts, returning from the northern border. The castle immediately transformed. Courtyards emptied. Soldiers rushed toward defensive positions. Messengers sprinted through every corridor. General Caelan Thorne entered the library without knocking. His scarred face hardened the moment he saw Elara. The regent requires every historical record concerning the Northern Kingdom. His gaze briefly lingered on Ryker, whose face remained hidden beneath his hood. And who is this? A manuscript courier. Elara answered without hesitation. Caelan studied Ryker for several uncomfortable seconds, then finally turned away. The regent expects complete loyalty. His voice lowered. There are whispers that someone has been searching for the old histories. He stepped closer. If those rumors prove true, they will not survive the week. Without another word, he disappeared. Silence returned. Ryker slowly removed one leather glove. For the first time, his fingers brushed gently against Elara's hand. The mate bond surged again. Warm, ancient, irresistible. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them pulled away. Because both understood the terrifying truth. Their bond had become stronger than either kingdom's hatred. And somewhere beneath the royal library, behind doors sealed for generations, waited a secret powerful enough to decide whether thousands would continue dying, or finally learn why the war had truly begun. Sleep never came. Not for Ryker, not for Elara. The mate bond pulsed through the silence like the steady heartbeat of an ancient world that refused to die. Every passing hour strengthened it. Every shared glance made pretending impossible. Yet neither spoke about destiny again. There were questions far more dangerous than love waiting beneath the castle. Just before midnight, Elara returned carrying an iron key unlike any Ryker had seen before. It was nearly the length of her forearm. Its surface was engraved with wolves, ravens, and a great tree whose roots surrounded a full moon. "You found it?" Ryker whispered. She nodded. It was hidden inside the binding of an atlas. The chief archivist left clues. You think he wanted someone to find the chamber? I think... She looked toward the dark hallway. He knew someone eventually would. The deepest section of the royal library had been abandoned for decades. Dust covered every stone. Broken shelves leaned against ancient walls. The air smelled of parchment, candle wax, and forgotten centuries. At the end of a narrow corridor stood an enormous circular iron door. No royal crest marked its surface. Instead, two wolves faced one another beneath the same crown. Ryker frowned. Our kingdoms use different symbols. They do now. Elara gently touched the carving, but not when this door was made. She inserted the key. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the mechanism groaned. Ancient gears awakened beneath the floor. The massive door slowly opened. Cold air escaped from the darkness beyond. Hundreds of candles suddenly ignited by themselves. A vast underground archive stretched farther than either of them could see. Shelves carved directly into stone held thousands of scrolls protected inside crystal cases. Maps covered the walls. Portraits of forgotten rulers overlooked the chamber. At its center stood a marble pedestal supporting a single enormous book wrapped in silver chains. Ryker stepped forward carefully. This place, it predates both kingdoms. Elara nodded. The hidden history. She unlocked the silver chains. The ancient volume opened by itself. Its pages were impossibly well preserved. Elegant handwriting filled every sheet. Across the top appeared a title neither of them had ever heard. The Chronicle of Asterra. Ryker's heartbeat quickened. Every history book in both kingdoms claimed no civilization had existed before the Great Divide. This book proved otherwise. He turned the first page. Paintings depicted alphas, betas, and omegas living together beneath one royal banner. Children played without pack colors. Warriors trained beside healers. Markets welcomed every territory. No walls separated north from south. No border divided brother from brother. Ryker whispered, "My entire life, I was taught this kingdom never existed." "So was I," Elara answered quietly. They continued reading. Decades passed across the pages. Prosperity. Peace. Shared harvests, joint councils. Then, everything changed. A single chapter bore the heading, The Night of Ashes. According to official history, the Northern King betrayed the Southern Crown. According to the Chronicle, the betrayal never happened. Instead, a royal advisor forged letters claiming the Northern Court planned an assassination. Panic spread. Fear replaced trust. One lie became retaliation. Retaliation became war. War became inheritance. Generation after generation inherited hatred without ever learning who had created it. Ryker slowly closed the book. "No." His voice barely existed. "This cannot be true." Elara looked at him with quiet sorrow. "It explains everything." Beneath the final pages rested another sealed envelope. The wax carried the same tree and moon emblem engraved upon the key. Elara carefully opened it. Inside lay a handwritten confession. If you are reading this, then truth has survived longer than those who buried it. The Great War was engineered by Regent Alistair Duskbane to seize the United Throne. His descendants vowed that the lie must never die. Destroy this record only if you wish hatred to outlive every child yet unborn. Ryker stared at the signature. High Chancellor Rowan Everhart, the last official historian of Asterra. Execution recorded 1 week later. Silence consumed the chamber. The realization settled between them with crushing weight. My father died fighting this war. Ryker whispered. My grandfather, my uncles, my closest friends. Elara lowered her eyes. I never knew my parents. They may have died because of the same lie. Neither kingdom had truly won. Neither had truly lost. They had both been victims. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the archive. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Footsteps. Many footsteps. Someone else was inside the library. Elara immediately extinguished several candles. They found us. Ryker placed himself between her and the entrance. No. They found the truth. The footsteps grew louder. Voices echoed through the corridor. General Kalen Thorne. I searched every floor. The hidden chamber must be here. Another voice answered. Cold. Measured. Dangerously calm. Regent Malrek Duskbane. My family protected this secret for 70 years. We will protect it for 70 more. Ryker's eyes hardened. Duskbane. The confession. The bloodline. Everything aligned. The ancient alpha inside him awakened completely. Heat exploded beneath his skin. Electric energy raced through every muscle. His golden eyes ignited. The mate bond answered instantly. Elara gasped softly as warmth flooded her own body. Invisible silver light shimmered around her fingertips. The ancient wolf recognized not only his mate, but the truth she protected. A deep, primal purr resonated through Ryker's chest. Not possessive, protective. The sound vibrated through the archive itself. Even the stone walls seemed to recognize the ancient bond. Elara looked into his glowing eyes. You came here to rescue prisoners. Ryker never looked away. I was wrong. What do you mean? I thought warriors were the kingdom's greatest prisoners. He gently took her hand. They are not. He looked toward the sealed entrance where Malrek's soldiers drew ever closer. The greatest prisoner has always been the truth. The first blow struck the iron door, then another. Heavy hammers echoed through the chamber. Dust fell like gray snow. Malrek's voice thundered from the other side. Burn every document. Kill anyone inside. No witnesses. Ryker drew his sword. The ancient steel reflected the golden fire burning within his eyes. He stood before Elara, not as a conqueror, not as a king, but as the guardian of a future that had not yet been written. For the first time in decades, the war was no longer about kingdoms. It was about whether truth would survive until sunrise. The first hammer shattered the silence. The second cracked the ancient iron door. By the third strike, stone dust rained from the ceiling. The hidden archive that had protected the truth for centuries was beginning to collapse. If the Chronicle of Asterra burned before sunrise, another generation would inherit the same hatred. Outside the chamber, Regent Malrek Duskbane stood motionless. His silver hair rested perfectly against his black ceremonial robes. There was no rage on his face, only certainty. For 70 years, his family had survived by making truth disappear. Another library, another historian, another witness. None had lived long enough to challenge history. Tonight would be no different. He slowly raised one hand. Break the door. 30 elite soldiers swung massive iron rams together. Boom. The hinges screamed. Boom. Cracks spread across the ancient frame. Boom. Light poured through the widening gap. Inside, Ryker calmly removed his royal cloak. He folded it once, then placed it carefully beside the chronicle. Elara stared at him. "What are you doing?" "If I fail..." He rested one hand upon the ancient book. "Someone must still carry this into the sunlight." She shook her head. "We leave together." He smiled softly. "I intend to." The answer carried no arrogance, only resolve. The final strike exploded through the chamber. The enormous door burst inward, splintered iron crashed across the stone floor. Dozens of armored soldiers flooded into the archive. Behind them walked General Caelan Thorne, sword already drawn, his scarred face twisted into a cruel smile. So, the famous hidden history truly existed. He looked toward Elara. And now, so does your execution. Caelan pointed his blade directly at her. "Kill the librarian. Burn every page." No one moved. Several soldiers looked uneasily toward the towering shelves, toward the paintings, toward the ancient symbols. Even they sensed something sacred inside the chamber. Caelan roared, "I gave an order." One frightened soldier stepped forward. Ryker did not move. He simply looked into the man's eyes. "You know she is unarmed." The soldier hesitated. "My family," Ryker continued. "Has this war not taken enough from yours?" The young man's sword slowly lowered. Then another soldier lowered his weapon. Then another. Fear began losing its grip. Caelan's face darkened. "Cowards!" Without warning, Caelan lunged. His blade flashed toward Elara. Ryker moved. So fast, the air itself seemed to split. Steel collided. The impact echoed like thunder. Caelan stumbled backward. Shock filled his face. "No alpha moves that quickly," Ryker answered quietly. "No alpha fights for vengeance tonight." He stepped forward. "I fight for tomorrow." Golden light ignited around him. Not flames. Something older. Ancient symbols shimmered beneath his skin. The Alpha King's aura erupted. Power rolled through the archive like a living storm. Candles flared. Ancient banners lifted without wind. Thousands of books trembled upon their shelves. The wolves inside every soldier awakened instinctively. Some dropped to one knee. Others backed away in disbelief. The primal authority filling the chamber felt overwhelming. Not cruel, not violent, simply undeniable. This was the power of an alpha protecting life, instead of demanding obedience. Malrek watched without blinking. So, the bloodline still remembers. He slowly removed a small crystal from inside his robes. It glowed with deep crimson light. Elara's expression changed immediately. "No." Ryker glanced toward her. "What is it?" "The blood seal," she whispered. "The artifact mentioned inside the chronicle. It amplifies fear." Malrek smiled. "It also preserves kingdoms." He crushed the crystal. Dark crimson energy exploded across the archive. Every soldier gasped. Old memories flooded their minds. Burning villages, fallen families, dead children, centuries of grief. The chamber filled with despair so powerful that several warriors collapsed. Some turned toward Ryker again, confused, terrified. Weapons slowly rose, not because they wished to fight, because fear had become their master once more. Elara closed her eyes. She remembered another passage, not inside the Chronicle, inside the forgotten journal. When truth is locked beneath stone, war becomes the prison of every generation. She suddenly understood. The opposite was also true. She stepped toward the center of the archive. "Listen to me!" Her voice rang through the chamber. The crimson energy continued swirling. No one answered. She tried again. "You are remembering pain. But pain is not the whole story." Several soldiers looked toward her. She pointed toward the Chronicle. "Read it. See what was stolen from all of us. You were never born hating one another. You were taught." Silence spread. The crimson light weakened, just slightly. Hope had entered the room. Malrek's composure finally cracked. "Enough!" He drew a concealed dagger. "If history cannot be buried, the girl will." He charged directly toward Elara. Ryker intercepted him. Their blades collided. Malrek was no warrior. He did not need to be. Every movement aimed toward deception. Hidden knives, poisoned strikes, dirty tactics. Ryker defended each attack without retreating. Behind him, Elara clutched the Chronicle tightly against her chest. She understood. This battle was never about killing one man. It was about protecting one truth. Kalen recovered. He lifted his sword once more. Before he could attack, Captain Aldrin stepped into the chamber. Older now. Gray-haired, still wearing the castle colors. Behind him came dozens of palace guards. Kalen smiled. "Excellent. Arrest the traitors." No one moved. Instead, Captain Aldrin slowly removed the royal insignia from his armor. It struck the stone floor with a sharp, metallic sound. "I carried a frightened little girl into this castle 20 years ago." He looked toward Elara. "I swore she would always have a home." His voice hardened. "I will not betray that promise." One by one, the palace guards removed their insignias, then their helmets, then their weapons. None pointed a blade toward Ryker. All stood beside Elara. Malrek stared in disbelief. "You would betray your kingdom?" Captain Aldrin answered calmly. "No. I am finally serving it." The regent looked around the chamber. His soldiers no longer trusted him. The palace guards had abandoned him. Even Kalen hesitated. The lie that had ruled generations was collapsing before his eyes. Still, he smiled. "If I cannot keep the kingdoms divided, no one shall rule them." He reached for a torch burning beside the entrance, then hurled it toward the towering shelves, straight towards centuries of history. Elara gasped. "No!" Ryker leaped. The torch flew through the air. Time seemed to stop. At the last possible instant, he caught it with his bare hand. The flames curled around his fingers, then slowly died. The chamber fell completely silent. Ryker gently placed the extinguished torch upon the stone floor. His voice remained calm. "You have burned enough. outside. The first light of dawn touched the castle towers. Golden sunlight slipped through the shattered doorway. It illuminated the Chronicle of Asterra. It illuminated Elara. It illuminated every face inside the chamber. For the first time in 70 years, the truth was no longer hidden beneath stone. It stood in the light, and nothing would ever bury it again. The battle ended without another sword being raised. No one cheered, no one celebrated. The silence inside the hidden archive carried too much grief for victory. Across the stone floor lay shattered weapons, broken armor, extinguished torches, not because an army had been destroyed, because an entire lifetime of lies had finally collapsed. Regent Malrek Duskbane stood surrounded by his own soldiers. Only moments earlier, they had obeyed his every command. Now, none of them would meet his eyes. He laughed quietly, a tired laugh. You think exposing one book changes anything? His voice echoed through the ancient chamber. Hate survives longer than truth. It always has. Ryker stepped forward. Hate survives only while truth remains hidden. He looked around the archive. That ends today. General Kalen Thorne slowly lowered his sword. His scarred face had lost the certainty that had defined him for decades. My father, he whispered. He died believing your stories. My brothers, my sons. He stared at Malrek. Were they all sacrificed for your ambition? Malrek answered without hesitation. They died building stability. Kalen's hand trembled. No. They died protecting your throne. The sword slipped from his fingers. Its sharp metallic sound echoed through the chamber like the end of an era. Captain Aldrin approached the regent. For more than 30 years, he had defended Blackstone Castle. He had buried friends, trained recruits, guarded kings. Never once had he questioned the war. Until tonight. He removed the final insignia from his breastplate. You stole our children. His voice remained steady. You stole our future. Then he looked toward the surrounding guards. Take him. No one hesitated. 4 palace guards stepped forward together. Malrek did not resist. For the first time in his life, there was nowhere left to hide behind power. The hidden archive remained silent until High Chancellor Rowan's confession was carried into the Grand Hall. Before sunrise, messengers had already summoned every surviving noble, military commander, elder, and royal advisor. Hundreds gathered beneath the towering crystal dome of Blackstone Castle. The Chronicle of Asterra rested upon a marble pedestal at the center of the chamber. Ryker stood beside it, not as an invader, as a witness. Elara stood beside him, still wearing the same simple blue-gray dress she had worn inside the library. She needed no crown. The truth itself had become her authority. One by one, the ancient pages were read aloud. The forged letters, the fabricated assassination, the manipulated councils, the secret executions, the hidden bloodline of the Duskbane family. Every chapter shattered another piece of the old world. Some nobles wept openly. Others lowered their heads in shame. Several elderly commanders quietly removed the medals they had earned during the war. None of them suddenly became villains. They had simply believed the only history they had ever been given. When the reading ended, the chamber remained completely silent. Finally, one elderly woman stepped forward. She had lost both sons during the Third Border Campaign. Her hands trembled as she looked toward Malrek. "I buried my children," she whispered, "for a lie." Another father followed, then another mother, then another soldier. No accusations, no shouting. Only broken hearts finally discovering why they had been broken. Even the stone walls seemed too heavy to carry such grief. High Elder Corvin, the oldest surviving leader from the neutral mountain clans, slowly rose from his seat. For crimes committed against both kingdoms, for deliberately creating war, for falsifying royal history, for orchestrating the deaths of countless innocent lives. He struck his ceremonial staff against the marble floor. "The judgment is unanimous." He turned toward Malrek. "You shall never again hold title, land, military authority, or political office. You will spend the remainder of your life preserving the very history you tried to erase. You will copy every page of the Chronicle by hand until your final breath." Malrek laughed bitterly. "You call that justice?" Corvin answered calmly. "No, I call it remembrance." General Kalen stepped forward next. Without waiting for instruction, he removed his crimson command cloak, then his jeweled sword belt. Finally, he knelt before the families gathered inside the hall. "I cannot return those who died," he said quietly. "I cannot erase what I defended, but I accept whatever sentence history believes I deserve." After a long silence, Corvin spoke again. "You will not lead armies. You will rebuild villages. For every home destroyed under your command, you will help build another." Kalen bowed his head. "I accept." As the assembly slowly dispersed, only Ryker and Elara remained near the Chronicle. Morning sunlight poured through the crystal ceiling. The mate bond pulsed gently between them, no longer urgent, no longer overwhelming, simply peaceful. Ryker looked at the dried blood covering his hands. Cuts crossed his knuckles. His shoulder still bled beneath torn armor. Small wounds. Nothing compared to those carried inside his heart. He looked toward Elara. "I spent years believing victory meant protecting my people." His voice grew quieter. "I never asked who was protecting yours." She said nothing. He slowly unclasped the heavy black cloak resting across his shoulders, then removed the royal circlet from his head. He laid both upon the marble floor. The Alpha King walked forward. One step, then another, until he stood only inches away from her. Without hesitation, Ryker Ashenfang lowered himself onto one knee. The movement stunned every witness still lingering inside the hall. The most powerful Alpha alive bowed before a woman wearing no jewels, no title, no crown, only quiet dignity. His voice trembled. "When destiny found us, I asked you to leave everything behind. I never asked what you would lose." A single tear escaped before he could stop it. "I am sorry. Not for one decision. Not for one night. For every year she had carried the burden alone." Elara felt tears gathering in her own eyes. Not because the pain had disappeared, because someone had finally acknowledged it without defending himself. Ryker lowered his head. "I cannot ask you to forget. I cannot ask you to forgive me today. I ask only for one chance to build a future worthy of the truth you protected. Silence filled the grand hall. Then, Elara reached forward. She did not lift the crown. She lifted the man. Our kingdoms were never enemies, she whispered. They were simply children raised on different stories. Ryker looked into her eyes. And what story shall we tell now? A gentle smile appeared across her face. One where no child inherits our hatred. The ancient mate bond flared warmly around them, not as possession, not as destiny fulfilled, as two equal hearts choosing the same future. Around them, warriors from both kingdoms slowly began lowering their weapons, not because they had been ordered to, because peace had finally become stronger than fear. 1 year later, the battlefield where thousands had once fallen had disappeared beneath endless fields of white wildflowers. Children from both kingdoms ran together without knowing where one border had once ended and another had begun. The walls that had divided generations still stood, but the gates remained open. For the first time in living memory, no soldier guarded them. Inside the ancient hall of Asterra, leaders from both kingdoms gathered beneath a restored royal banner that had not flown for more than 70 years. At the center of the chamber stood neither throne. Instead, a single circular platform symbolized unity over conquest. Alpha King Ryker Ashenfang walked forward wearing simple ceremonial black rather than battle armor. Beside him stood Elara Vale, no longer known only as the quiet royal librarian. She had become the keeper of truth. Not because a title had been granted, because an entire generation trusted the woman who had refused to let history disappear. High Elder Corvin slowly raised the restored crown of Asterra. Unlike the crowns of either kingdom, it carried no symbols of dominance. Only two wolves standing beneath the same ancient tree. He smiled gently. Today, we do not crown a conqueror. We honor the woman whose courage reminded us who we once were. He carefully placed the crown upon Elara's head. No brilliant explosion of magic followed. No dramatic display of supernatural power. Only heartfelt applause echoing through the hall. Sometimes, the greatest miracles arrived quietly. Ryker turned toward the gathered assembly. For decades, we believed strength meant defeating our enemies. He looked toward the children sitting together in the front row. We were wrong. Strength is choosing peace when hatred feels easier. The chamber erupted into warm applause, not for a king, but for a future finally built upon truth. Outside the hall, the celebration continued until sunset. Families shared food across long wooden tables. Former soldiers laughed together for the first time. Musicians filled the valley with songs older than the war itself. Near the great oak tree planted after the peace treaty, Ryker gently took Elara's hand. The Chronicle saved our kingdoms, he said quietly. Elara smiled. No. She looked around at the thousands of people gathered together. People saved them. The Chronicle only reminded us who we already were. Ryker smiled. She was right. Again, as evening settled over the valley, lanterns illuminated the branches of the ancient tree. Children hung handwritten promises from its limbs. I will choose kindness. I will protect the truth. I will never inherit hatred. The wind carried the ribbons gently through the night. Perhaps that was how peace truly began. One promise at a time. If this story touched your heart, we hope you will take a moment to support the channel by liking this video, sharing it with someone who loves emotional werewolf romance stories, and subscribing for more unforgettable journeys of love, redemption, and destiny. Now we would love to hear from you. If you had been in Ryker's place, would you have destroyed the enemy kingdom to save your mate? Or would you have risked everything to reveal the truth, just as Elara did? Share your answer in the comments below. Your thoughts inspire future stories, and we read as many comments as we can. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Wherever you are listening from, we hope this story reminds you that even the oldest hatred can end when one person has the courage to protect the truth. Until our next adventure, take care of yourself, take care of those you love, and may hope always guide your path.